Just to populate database table with more realistic data, I'm going to manually create an array of courses in here. And the data for those courses I'm going to take from the playlists of this YouTube channel. So in here I'm creating the data property, which is going to store array with data for courses. And the structure of each element of this array will be the same as the course structure in our application. So now that we have this array, let's do the following. I'm going to take amount of elements in this array by calling function count to know how many records we have to generate by using the factory. And then let's call method sequence, which actually takes list of parameters. But since we have an array of data, we can simply destructure these elements and pass every element of the array as an individual argument to this sequence function. And when we are going to call the create, it is basically going to generate records in the database table based on the data from the previously declared array. So after running seeders, sure enough, we're gonna see that database table now is seeded with more realistic data for courses. But what if in addition to those 13 records that have been generated by using the data from the array, we actually want to generate some more data with random values? And now if I'm going to specify the amount of records which exceeds amount of elements in the array, we're going to see the following in the database. The first 13 records have been generated based on the data from the array, and the rest of records are actually duplicates of those previous 13 records. So no matter which amount of elements we're going to specify when calling factory method, it is going to take data from the array to generate all those records, even though there will be duplicates in the database. And the way how we can prevent this from happening is actually by specifying the callback to this sequence method call. This callback is going to take sequence object, and in here we have to return the associative array that has to be used to populate each record in the database table. So right here I'm trying to access individual elements from the data array based on the current index of the iteration. And as long as this element exists, we're going to use this data to fill in a record in the database. Otherwise, we're going to use an empty array, which will cause factory to use random values to generate the rest of records once we're going to exceed amount of elements in the data array. Let's try it out and run dbseed once again and check the database table. In here we're seeing that the first 13 records have been generated based on the data from the array, and the rest of records are actually generated by using random values, just like we want. And all these records we can also see on the courses page in the browser. Let's continue development in the next lesson.